you feel about the proper use of a comma? Does a semicolon in the wrong place set you off? Well, you're not alone. Self-proclaimed grammar nerd Ellen Jovin set up her first grammar table outside her Manhattan apartment and invited people to stop with questions. She took the show on the road and wrote Rebel with a Clause, Tales and Tips from a Roving Grammarian. She joins me now. I loved this book.
Thank you, Susie.
Wow. Who knew grammar could be fun? Well, you did, because of the shirt. Okay, so first of all, you're never looking at my old college papers. But can you clear something up? I say there's 2 spaces after a period. My kids say no.
I'm going to go with your kids.
Oh, my gosh.
But you know what? It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
No, if it fills your heart with joy, I think you should continue. But just don't make them do 2 spaces.
Okay, I still do that automatic. I mean, even on Twitter. And then
but I save so much time.
You do.
Yes,
you
I really do.
Ugh, can't get that brain around. Okay, so tell me about the grammar table. Why did you start that?
I was talking about language all the time anyway. I've been a professional word nerd my entire life, and I was on the computer all the time, and I got sick of it. You know, all those Facebook groups, you can talk about language with people everywhere, and so I said, okay, I need to get this out on the street instead and see more people.
So you took your table, there you are, in Manhattan, and you had this sign that had all these things you could do, even vent, questions you could ask. And what happened? People wanted to talk about grammar.
Yeah, I walked out there. I felt a little self-conscious. Not gonna lie about that. I put up the sign, and someone came up right away and started talking to me, and it just continued from there.
Okay, so you took the show on the road, 47 states so far.
Actually, in between our original conversations, and now there've been 2 more.
Oh, so you have 1 state left.
That's right.
Wow, which one? Oh, we shouldn't tell.
Well,
Maybe?
we could tell.
Okay.
It's Hawaii.
Hawaii. Oh.
It's going to be hard.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it. most asked question that you get about grammar?
Definitely the Oxford comma. There's the comma before the and at the end of a list. There's no contest for a top question.
Wow, that's interesting how it sets people off.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's partly because it has a name, so it's easy to refer to. And people like their details. You know, they want their coffee the same way in the morning. They want their comma in the same place.
They want their comma in the same place. So you were in Riverfront Park in Spokane when you came to our state. What was on their mind?
I don't know if this was coincidence, but there were quite a few adverb discussions that day. So I remember a woman with her husband and children. She was concerned about the lack of ly on the end of adverbs. So, you know, like when people say, I need to do that real quick, she wanted there to be an ly on the end really quickly, that kind of thing. Yep. And then I learned something that day. I learned something on the streets of Washington.
Okay.
Yep. It was the pronunciation of Pasties. There are 2 versions, 2 pronunciations, which I did not realize. Pasties for the little things that you put, you know where.
Yeah.
And then pasties for the food.
The food. Pasties.
But I didn't know that because I only read it in books. I never discussed them, and I didn't really eat them. So I always just said them as pasties.
And you learned that in Washington.
I did. So thank you.
Go Washington.
Thank you, Washington.
Wow. So you make a point that there is a lot of elitism associated with grammar and correcting people and things like that. Is it fair, that kind of charge, and how do we make it more accessible?
A lot of times that people remember the things they're told not to do, these rules, and people telling them they're wrong. Often those rules are not actually correct, first of all. So sometimes there's mythology that's been passed on. Grammar for me is a huge, sprawling, varied universe of language that we use in all different kinds of ways. And it should be something that's full of joy and humor and fun. Of course, you need to know some basic conventions for formal writing, but there's a lot more variety than people think.
And one point I love that you made in the book is stop correcting people. Because I bet you ran into that a lot as people wanted to be right, like me with my, Stop correcting people unless it's your family, or?
I think that it's not gracious socially to do it, but also so often the people who are really bent on correcting people really are they're often wrong. Like the big one, don't end with a preposition. It's much more natural to say that's the book I was telling you about than that's the book about which I was telling you. And so they can just knock that off.
I love that. This is such a fun read, especially when you go to all the different states. So thank you for that. I still disagree about the whole thing. Whatever. Ellen, will be checking your grammar tonight at Town Hall Seattle. It starts at 7:30, and you can check out our website for more information.